Welcome to Sports Saved My Life. My name is Clayton Freck, and I'm the CEO and founder of Angel City Sports. We know the power of sport to change and, in some cases, save lives. We hear these compelling stories every day, and we created this show to share them with the world. Enjoy the show, and remember to like, follow, share, and comment. All right, so today it is my true honor to welcome Brianna Salinaro. Did I get that?
You did get that, yeah.
To the show. I don't know why my brain was struggling. You're from, I should have asked you this, Massapequa?
Massapequa, New York, yeah.
Massapequa, New York. Brianna was diagnosed with cerebral palsy at the age of about 1.5. And she'll explain this, but her CP apparently mostly affects her lower limbs and her back. She competed in a variety of sports growing up, like basketball, soccer, softball, tennis. And she also has been involved in the sport of Taekwondo since she was about 5. She found Taekwondo in 2016, just in time for it to be added to the Tokyo 2020 Paralympic Games. She's been competing internationally since then and is currently ranked 4th in the world. She was the first athlete with CP to fight on the world stage and won a bronze at the 2017 World Championships. And last year, during the pandemic, in addition to training, she actually graduated from college. Good job there. And currently is very dedicated to training for Tokyo. So, welcome to the show, Brianna.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So my first question is, what comes to mind when you hear the title of our show, Sports Saved My Life? For you.
Like, I could resonate with it a lot. I think just like that meaning, like, of the sentence, sports saved my life, like, it gave me a reason to, like, sports gave me a reason to not sit in my bed and, like, feel bad for myself that I have a disability. So it made me have more of, like, a positive outlook on life than if I were to, like, not compete and just, like, not do anything and just, like, go about my life normally, I guess. But
yeah, that's great. What does it give you?
What does it give me? Sports, or like that?
Sports, yeah.
It gives me a lot of things. It gives me stress. It gives me confidence. It gives me
say stress.
Yeah, like I don't know, like there's so many different emotions that come with the sport, especially competing at the level that I'm competing at now. Like sometimes,
but you're in a fighting sport, so your stress level might be higher than others.
Yeah, definitely. But like I meant that in the best way. Like it's a good stress. It's not bad.
All right. It gives you stress. Keep going. What else does it give you?
It gives me confidence. It gives me strength. It gives me like just like power and just like the ability to know that like that I can overcome certain things. Like it shows me things that I couldn't do before or I didn't think I could do before. So
that's interesting. So you would say I like to say sport can unlock dreams, and it sort of does that by showing people that
definitely
you could do things that you really didn't think were possible.
Yeah, I agree.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
All right. Love it. Okay. Give me one sentence that describes you.
Oh, that's a tough one.
Who are you?
Who am I? I am a para Taekwondo athlete that has CP. I honestly, I don't know.
I mean, those are probably the two most relevant things to this interview. So
yeah, like if you're going really like deep there, I get like to the detail, I guess that would be it. But yeah.
Got it.
That's who I am right now.
Everybody hates that question, by the way. So you're in very good company. Everyone's like, "What? One sentence?" I'm like, "Okay, take 2 sentences if you want." But okay, so walk me through your childhood. Where'd you grow up? What was your family like? What kind of kid were you? Like, paint that picture for us.
I was a pretty active kid. Like, from diagnosis, I was told that I wouldn't be able to do much. Like, I didn't have like a great outlook for what the doctors thought my life would be like.
What did they say? What did they tell your parents?
They told my parents that I probably wouldn't be able to walk, and they weren't too sure about like speech and just like general motor functions. So they thought I was going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life.
So, okay, that's all really interesting, and I love stories where people prove the healthcare community wrong, which seems to be a lot of those stories out there. But talk to me about how did your parents, what was going on with you? Your parents sought, maybe some medical guidance on to even get your diagnosis. So as a baby or a toddler, like what was going on?
So like at the normal age that babies start walking, like I wasn't. And like my dad always told me when he would push me in the shopping cart and like he'd like push me further just like to have fun or whatever, and he'd see my eye like go in, so they knew there was like something like neurologically could be wrong there. And then when my mom would put my shoes on, my shoes wouldn't stay on because my feet were so pointed. So my mom took me to a bunch of different doctors, and they all told her different things. Like they all said,
like what did they say?
They said like she'll grow out of it, like just give her time, like it's nothing, she's fine. But my mom knew like there was something wrong, so she kept taking me to the doctors, and then I got an MRI of like my brain, and from there, that's when I got diagnosed.
So that's really interesting. So your parents sort of knew something was different about you, but they didn't know what. They didn't have a diagnosis. And then in a reverse of what you said earlier, the medical community actually sort of
they thought I was good. Like
they just got it wrong. They sort of dismissed it.
Right.
And so it takes an MRI, to actually figure this out. Do they have a theory about like how it happened, or what do they say about, and maybe explain what cerebral palsy is for our audience?
Sure. So cerebral palsy is a neurological disability that it affects everybody differently. I mean, me specifically, I have spastic diplegia. So it affects my lower limbs, and in turn affects my back, my posture, and then everything going up just because of how tight my limbs are.
But your upper body isn't really affected.
I mean, no, but like it goes into my back, which then goes into my neck. So like, depending on how tight I am, it's like you could tell, like, just by the way I sit or by the way I stand. But I mean, like my upper body essentially is able-bodied. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So yeah, it causes issues with balance and motor function and like, walking and like speech and, stuff like that, hand-eye coordination.
So what do your parents do? And so listen, I'm a parent, my kid was born different. So my wife and I had to kind of process, in the moment in the delivery room, almost like, whoa, this is different than we were expecting. A year and a half later, they knew something was different. They didn't know what. They finally get the diagnosis. So what did they do at that point once they got the diagnosis?
I mean, like I was born, I believe, like 3 months premature. So, okay. And my mom said there was a moment in the delivery room where like I wasn't breathing, but it was like momentary. Like she could tell something was wrong, but then the second she could tell something was wrong, it was fine. Like everything was fine. So they weren't worried from the get-go, but once they got the diagnosis, they started going to like CP schools, like preschools and like care facilities, just to see, because prior to me, I don't think they knew what CP even was. So they went to just observe and like see how people live their lives and like what it would be like to go to that type of school and like what my life could potentially entail, depending on how severe my CP was.
And at the time, you're a year and a half, you're not walking yet. So right? So they don't really know.
Yeah, they don't. It was definitely a guessing game, for sure. And then the doctor that I've been seeing for the past like 22 years now, my parents came across her. I'm not too sure how, from hospital from special surgery, and she offered them it was either like I could do Botox to try to calm the muscles, or I can get my Achilles tendons lengthened.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom chose to do the lengthening, and it wasn't guaranteed that it was going to work, but it did. So
I think I know that surgery a little bit. So your tendons are so tight that you're kind of on your tippy toe,
right,
and it's hard to have a kind of a normalized gait.
Yeah.
So they're able to lengthen the tendon, and there was a era where they severed the tendon as well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's for your disability, but I know of some people that had that surgery as well. So in this case, they were just lengthening it.
Yeah, they were just lengthening it on both sides. I didn't get a severed tendon or anything like that.
So you have full control of your feet.
Yeah. I mean, like, I don't have control of like my big toe at times in certain positions, but it's barely noticeable. Like, I can basically control 99% of my foot. So.
And so your parents are researching, right, trying to figure this landscape out. I relate to that, massively. At some point you start walking. At some point you start to defy the odds or the advice from those doctors. Like what was that journey? Kind of when did you start walking, or was it post surgery? Like kind of what was the chain of events there?
For me personally, I don't remember any of this. So this is all from like what my parents have told me.
That's okay. Yeah.
But,
that's good.
My parents told me like I got both surgeries done, and I was in like thigh high casts for a long time. And then my mom said like one day I just got off the couch and like I had like a toy shopping cart, and I just grabbed onto it and like pushed it and like just started walking.
Wait, how old are you?
I was probably like 2.5 at the time.
So pretty soon after the diagnosis, you get the surgery.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then from there, like after I got this, like the cast off, I went to full-time like day braces for my legs.
Sure.
Day and night. And then when I was about 3 or 4, I switched over to just nighttime braces. So.
I mean, that's pretty impressive. I would say a lot of people living with CP have a brace or two.
Yeah.
That's kind of just part of their gear.
Right.
Okay. So kudos to your parents, for knowing something was up and staying with it, trying to figure it out. And what have they said about that journey where they didn't know if you were going to walk or talk, and then what, like clearly you've defied the odds. Like, what do they say about that?
I mean, like my dad specifically, like he's like over the moon about, he's like, you just continue to like defy every odd that was like put on you since we knew something was up, Mm-hmm. My mom says the same thing. Like they treat me completely normally. Like I don't walk around the house as if I have a disability. You know what I mean? So,
right.
It's like, yeah, they're just super proud. And like, I remember them telling me when they went to the like CP preschool, they just like could not stop crying, because I guess it was like the unknown, and then like seeing this whole new life that they've never experienced before and could potentially be mine. Not that it was a bad thing, but they were just like, there was so much unknown that they couldn't like grasp, I guess, what was happening. But
so they were seeing like a CP home type place.
Yeah, like home or preschool kind of thing, I think.
Where people aren't, I mean, because the more extreme version is they're not able to talk or walk.
Right.
That's, I get it. I mean, it's like the unknown is the unknown, but then they see kind of
like
low functioning
cases of it.
kid,
Yeah. So
right?
it probably scared them a little bit, but it worked out. So
It did, defying the odds. I love that. So what was your, to the extent that you remember, like what was your childhood like? What kind of kid were you?
Well, like growing up, I was always like, I did physical therapy all the time. I did occupational therapy all the time, and I did speech therapy for like part of the time. And growing up, it was very easy to see that there was something wrong with the way I walked, and in turn, something wrong with the way I ran. So like at gym and at recess, like it was super obvious to all the other kids, and like kids don't have a filter. They don't know, like if something's wrong, they point it out. You know what I mean? So I did get bullied a lot throughout my childhood, just for the way I physically like looked.
Mm-hmm.
And for a while, for like a long time, I just like I was always like, why me? Like, why is this happening? Like, like why do I have this body? Like, why am I living this life? Like,
yeah.
But I was still always super active. Like, it never stopped me from really doing too much. Like
you never like let it get you totally down and out and depressed about it.
No.
It's
I mean, there
like
were days that like I would go home crying, but like it never stopped me from like going to a basketball game or like playing at recess. Like,
yeah,
it would hurt my feelings in the moment and maybe for a couple of days after, but like it wasn't, like a long time thing.
I mean, kids can be really cruel. I mean, do you remember some of the things they said?
I was known as a duck for the way I walked. Like that's what everybody called me.
Really?
So, yeah. So that was kind of rough. I was like bringing back memories. And just like every time I ran, like somebody would say something or like laugh or like point it out. Yeah.
So how does that young girl, recharge her batteries if she's sort of feeling down? How did you stay, positive and active? What would you say if you kind of deconstruct your childhood? And listen, your story is very, very common, in the disability community. So, but everyone has different strategies and kind of how they stayed positive and sort of forward thinking. Like, what do you think your mix of tools was?
I don't know if it was like positive thinking. It was kind of just like there was no other choice.
Mm-hmm.
Like my parents didn't let me like be sad or like, well, they let me be sad when I felt it, but like they didn't let me prolong it. Like it was just like, okay, like cry it out, feel it out. We'll talk about it. Like say whatever you need to say, like, and then go play with the neighbors outside. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was never like a prolonged thing. And I think like kindergarten, first grade, I remember specifically, like I had so many friends, like it wasn't like I didn't notice there was really something wrong with me until about like second grade. I thought for a while everybody wore braces on their feet and like it was just like part of life, but it wasn't until I got a little bit older that I was like, oh wait, they are making fun of me, and oh, I'm not like everybody else, know.
Yeah.
So but when like I said, like I would just cry it out and then move on with the day. So
I mean, that's a pretty good approach. So, but you're giving your parents a fair amount of credit here for not letting you go to some deeper, more negative place.
Yeah, definitely. I think when I got like older, like 10, 12, like there were points where I got a little bit deeper into like the sadness of it because it felt like it was like never ending. And I feel like it's so frustrating. Even now, like at points, like it's so frustrating when you know how you want to perform or you know how you want to move and you can't.
Right.
And then you see everybody else around you doing it and it's like, that's such a simple thing. Like that's something people take for granted all the time. Like, and now the most frustrating thing for me is like seeing people like sit on the couch and do nothing. And I'm like, you have a completely able body. Like, go use it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so.
Yeah. And how many of us are wasting that opportunity?
Right. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Did you have any more surgeries, or was that one that you had young? Was that all you had?
No, I actually had 2 more surgeries this past year.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What were those surgeries?
I tore both labrums in my hips, and I had impingements on both sides. So while we were on our break for Corona, I got that fixed.
Got it.
Yeah.
And you're recovered and feeling good?
Recovered and good to go, yeah.
That's great. And so I'm really interested in self-confidence and understanding that journey. And I think it's hard. I think it's hard for anybody. And then I think if you have a disability, it's like, oof, that's an extra layer. So talk to me about that. Like sounds like early years, you kind of didn't even notice, and then you started to notice, and then junior high is tough. Junior high is tough for everybody. But like kind of what was the kind of that flow of kind of where your self-confidence was?
So my self-confidence was like at an all-time low, probably from like 10 and up. I did not like how I moved. I did not like how I looked. I did not like any part of who I was or how I was. For a long time, I struggled with that. And sometimes I still do.
Sure.
But I think with the work, because like for me, I always felt like the weird kid because I had to be taken out of class to go to physical therapy or go to occupational therapy or whatever. So that just being taken out to go do something extra that nobody else had to do, like kind of made me feel like weird about myself.
Honestly, I don't think teachers and school administrators understand this.
No.
I really don't think they understand it. How it's traumatic to be yanked out of a class.
Yeah. And when I was young, like I loved it. I was like, oh, cool. Like I get to go play with clay and like go jump around and like do whatever, you know. But like as I got older, obviously I realized what was going on, and like the last thing I wanted was to like leave the classroom. So that definitely affected my self-confidence in school. And just like I really struggled for a long time. And I think sometimes I still do, but with the work that I put in through physical therapy, especially in the past 5 years, my confidence has risen significantly. So I would say my confidence hasn't been as high as it is today in a very long time.
So you're saying about 10, it really sort of starts to bottom out. Mm-hmm. Is there a point where it starts to come up to a more manageable place?
Probably when I first joined the competition team for Taekwondo is when it kind of went a little bit higher, because I found a group of friends that at Taekwondo that accepted me and like didn't look at me like, oh, why do you kick so low, or like why do you move like that? Like it was just kind of like, okay, we don't care, you know, like just go do your best, like go come be a part of like what we're doing. So
and how old were you then when you started to kind of get more serious about the Taekwondo? I
was like 13.
Okay, so you had a few years there that were tough.
Yeah, definitely.
And then since
majority of like elementary school was tough, and like the beginning of middle school. But,
right.
Yeah.
And then would you say sort of since then you've been on kind of a gradual climb?
No, I think it went back down, and now it's coming back up.
When did it go back down?
It went back down after 2017. I had a pretty good year in Taekwondo, and then after 2017, like 2018 hit, and my confidence just like soared with every loss that I had. I just lost more and more confidence.
Okay, but were you competing at a higher level and competing against harder opponents and losing, or were you competing against components that you were able to beat in 17 and now you just weren't able to beat them?
Well, okay. So
Were you being fair to yourself or were you being unfair?
I was probably being unfair, but at the same time, like these are my only competitors, like regardless of if there's nobody, I'm not equal with anybody. Like everybody has able-bodied limbs. They're missing a limb, but like in
everything is functioning that they have.
Yeah, everything is still able-bodied. So like it didn't matter to me because in 2017, like I was losing, but I was winning some and I was losing some. But even when I lost, I could see some progression. I could see that like my work was paying off, like my training was paying off, you know. And then 2018, like it became a lot harder to score, like physically just score. And I think a lot of that had to do with my hips. Because I tore my labrum back in 2016, but I didn't do anything about it until this year. So. And
you knew you had it?
Well, I didn't realize how much of an impact it had. It didn't hurt me. They only knew because they did an x-ray, just like a checkup x-ray. And they're like, oh, did your hip hurt? And I was like, no. And they're like, oh, well, your labrum's torn. And I was like, okay. And they're like, well, if you're not in pain, like we don't have to do anything about it. And I was like, all right.
But it affected your functionality.
I think it got worse over time and it definitely started to affect the way it performed. Yeah. Yeah.
So how so you're in college from 16 to 20, more or less.
Yeah.
How did the collegiate experience affect your self-confidence? Like, were you able to find kind of a crew of girls or, you know, whatever, like, were you able to kind of find your place in college?
Yeah. So like, I would say like 10th grade and high school, I found a really good group of friends. I had my Taekwondo friends, I had my school friends, and like, that's when I started to become like, okay, and like start to know who I was and like be okay with that. And then college hit and I would say like freshman year was probably one of the worst years of my life. Like just, yeah, with everything that happened that year, like, and I feel like I have trouble meeting people just because of my confidence level sometimes. But as college went on, I did find a good group of friends and like I did find where I fit. So, I mean, my college experience wasn't anything like a normal person's because I was training and competing the whole time. But
yeah, so you were really busy, so you didn't even have time for all the just social stuff and
right. Yeah.
What was so tough about freshman year? Was it mostly just that you're a little shy and weren't able to make friends kind of early on?
Well, I had like severe anxiety about leaving. My home life wasn't great at the time. So I was worried about my mom back home. And then I was actually sick. I had celiac disease, but it went undiagnosed until December of freshman year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I struggled a lot, like studying and just I couldn't sleep and like I felt sick all the time. So it was hard to even want to go out to make friends because I just didn't feel well.
Oh wow.
And then my mom wound up getting cancer at the end of my freshman year. So it was kind of just a whirlwind of things that happened. But yeah. So
I mean, you're not that old, but you've been through a lot. So you know, I know there's wisdom packed in there, really, that you get to share now with the rest of the world, which is kind of a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I love to ask this question because I just always get unique answers. But what would you tell parents going through what your parents went through? Like, you know, kids born not hitting milestones, they don't, you know, like diagnosis of CP in that year and a half, 2 year zone, and the uncertainty of that. Like, what would you tell parents?
I would say you definitely have to like do what my parents did in a sense of like fight for your kid. Like if you know something's wrong and the doctor's telling you no, like find that doctor that will at least listen to you. You know what I mean? In that sense. And then in uncertainty, I just feel like you have to like know that it's okay to feel what you're feeling, but also let your kid like let time take its course. Like just because the doctor says one thing doesn't mean that it's going to end up that way. So, and sometimes like doing too much research could scare you. So like, you know when you Google something because you're not feeling good and like you get like the worst results, but like it's
whatever. You could Google the most innocuous thing and get something you don't want to see. So you're right.
Yeah.
But you're saying in the search for medical information, there is a danger of getting the wrong or just too much.
Yeah, just too much, I think.
I'd like to take a quick break to show you how you can get involved as a volunteer with Angel City Sports.
Are you interested in supporting Angel City Sports? We're seeking volunteers to help organize clinics and events, as well as support our athlete outreach efforts, marketing and media, and even fundraising and development. All skill sets and backgrounds are welcome in support of our mission to provide free adaptive sport opportunities for children, adults, and veterans with physical disabilities or visual impairments. For our younger athletes, we welcome you to join the Angel City Youth Leadership Council. Middle and high school age students are eligible to join the Youth Leadership Council, where you will learn about the disabled community by working side by side with our athletes and acquire important skills such as teamwork, leadership, philanthropy, and event management. To sign up for our volunteer newsletter and stay up to date on all upcoming opportunities, visit angelcitysports.org.
Okay, so let's shift into sport. And you alluded to the playground and PE not maybe always being a safe place for you because you got teased and bullied to some extent in those environments at school, but you kept at it. Was that you or was that your parents?
Like going
just
to gym and
just playing all these sports and being so active. Like, was that sort of kind of just how you were programmed, or did your parents just sort of like keep signing you up for stuff? And were you like, why are you signing? Were you fighting it, or you were like, you were all in on sport, whatever it was?
I think like growing up with the friends, like the neighbors that I had and the friends that I had at the time, they were very like involved in sports. And I didn't see any reason that I couldn't. So like, I wanted to try basketball. I wanted to try soccer. Like I wanted to try everything that I could just because I was interested to see like how it would go. Like when I was in first grade, like I wanted to be in the WNBA. Like it was like, that was my goal.
Are you tall?
No, I'm 5'2". So like
the short girl with CP. Exactly. I love it.
Not going to happen, but
love it. Okay. So when you think back to all those sports that you did growing up, what ended up being your least favorite and what ended up being your most favorite? Separate from Taekwondo, obviously, that you picked that path at some point, but like when you dabbled across all these sports, like what did you end up not liking and what did you end up kind of really liking? Basketball,
softball. I hated soccer.
Wait, you said you hated softball? You said hated softball, hated soccer?
Yeah. And I love basketball. Loves basketball. So softball I didn't get into until middle school. And I kind of just tried out like on a whim. It wasn't like I had some prior like 6-year experience like the rest of the team, but even just like running, like the physical running of it, I just couldn't stand physically or mentally. I just wasn't there. Soccer was just too much for me physically. And basketball I always thought was just super exciting and super cool. So
that's great. Yeah, it's just cool that you had a passion. It's cool that you at least tried all these sports. Talk to me about how you found adaptive sports or Paralympic sport in your case, because your sport ended up becoming a Paralympic sport?
Yeah, so I competed in able-bodied Taekwondo starting at like 13. And I was losing all the time. And I was nearing the end of high school. And I have such a passion for Taekwondo, but I was talking to my mom and I'm like, Mom, I can't keep doing this. Like, I can't keep training and like dedicating all this time just to keep losing. Like, I was like so fed up. I was so frustrated with the whole process. And I wound up just like, I went on the Team USA website and I was looking at Paralympic sports, and they had like a list of sports and Taekwondo was on it, but it wasn't starred for my disability. So I didn't think people with my disability could do it.
But how did you even know to go to the website? Like where did the word Paralympics enter your vocabulary?
Well, I was on the Team USA website. Like, I was on the USA Taekwondo website, and I was looking at, I don't even know what I was looking at. Like, I think I could randomly Googled it. Like, I literally just Googled USA Taekwondo or something, and like the Paralympic, like I went to like para sport, like it came up on the USA page. So I just clicked on it. I wanted to see what sports they had available. And Taekwondo was there, but it wasn't there for my disability. So I didn't think I could do it. And then I wound up calling the head of USA Taekwondo, and I was like, hey, do you think I could like do this? Like, do you think this is something I could be a part of? So they told me to fly out to Vegas to get classified. So that's when like.
So this is 2016?
2016. So
after the Rio Games? Or
it was after was it after? It wasn't after, it was before. It was before. Because I remember watching the Rio Games and being like, oh my God, I could be at the next one. So it was, definitely surreal. But so like I did an accidental Google search actually. And when the list came up, I was like, okay, like let me get on this. Like, let me see if I could do this, you know. So I flew out to Vegas, I got classified, and I was the first CP athlete to get classified for sparring. Normally CP athletes only do poomsae, which is like forms. Like it's like a dance with no music. Like you're just performing a pattern. So you're not fighting anybody.
And that's both versions of Taekwondo are in the Paralympics?
No, just sparring.
Oh, just sparring is. Okay.
Yeah. So they put me in like so there's 4 different classes. They put me in the second one, but the third and fourth are the only ones that go to the Paralympics. So I got reclassified because I was the only one in that division. Like there was nobody for me to compete against. It was literally myself. So I'd wind up competing against everybody from the fourth category, just so I had somebody to compete against. So then I wound up getting classified into that division.
And how did you get classed into that category? I
got classed like 3 different times. So it was like 3 different people. Like it was all different opinions. And then like I had enough function, I guess, to be in that class. Like I kind of shocked them in a way, I think, because they didn't, it's predominantly an amputee sport. So they didn't expect like a CP athlete to show up, and they're just kind of like, oh, what do we do with you? Like, I don't know. So,
and are there more CP athletes now?
There is one other CP athlete. She's in the weight division below me, and she has hemiplegia, so it affects like the right side, I believe, of her body. But prior to that, it was just me. So
that's really cool. And so that launches, you get classified, and basically, the way Paralympic sport works is you have to be organized into a class. And once you are, then it's actually kind of, I think it makes it more fun if you can get classed, because then you can kind of see how you're performing relative to, the top athletes. So that, getting classed, at least I looked at your resume and it's like, starting in 2016. So that's sort of, tell me, but it seems like it launches your international career at that point.
It did. It definitely it launched my international career for sure. like Worlds 2017, I would say was a big turning point for me. I was ranked third in the world going into that tournament just because of all the points I accumulated previously. So I had to buy into my first fight, which was the quarterfinals. I won that fight, and then I wound up fighting the world champion and number 1 ranked player in the semifinals, and I wound up losing. But going into that tournament, I didn't think I was going to make it out of the first fight. So I kind of proved a lot to myself there. That's kind of when, like me personally, I was like, okay, I'm going to take this all the way. Like I'm just going to go for it. So it's been years of international competition since.
What's your highlight moment so far?
That's my highlight moment. That
getting the bronze.
Yeah.
At Worlds.
Yeah. Like I said previously, like all these athletes that I fight against are amputees, so their lower limbs work just fine. So the competition field is not totally level, at least for me.
So describe how you feel you're limited in your movements when you're sparring, and like what are your strategies to kind of overcome them and beat these amputees that have whatever limbs they have, they're fully functioning.
Yeah. So how I'm limited is definitely my flexibility. Like if I'm extremely nervous or extremely jet lagged or both, like I tense up significantly, which then makes it a lot harder for me to kick.
And the way your body works, it's more tense than it affects you more than it might an able-bodied person.
Yeah, like I'm just generally tight to begin with, but then you add the nerves and you add the jet lag, and like I just become complete, like just super, super tight. And that definitely limits, like I feel like my mind and body are connected in the sense of like if I'm nervous, like my body's gonna perform like I'm nervous, but like if I'm like more relaxed, like I'll perform better. And obviously like anybody would perform that way, but I just mean that like you could see how nervous I am in the way I perform. So my motion, like my flexibility and my speed are definitely the two top things that are affected when I fight. Like if my coach says to kick now, I'll kick 2 seconds after he originally wants me to kick.
So what are your strategies to make up for that?
I every single time I come home from a loss, like I literally just go back to the drawing board and like say, okay, like what tools can I use to improve my hand-eye coordination or improve my response time or like just improve flexibility. And that's why I've gotten so deep into physical therapy. Because that's literally the only way I'm going to get more flexible. And then I bought these things called Blaze Pods. I don't know if you've seen them before, but they're like light up pods that you like you take, like you could set them up any way you want, and you could like hit them with your feet, you could hit them with your hands, and like it just trains your brain, like hand-eye coordination, kind of like go when you're supposed to go kind of thing.
I think I have seen them.
Yeah, they're like
it helps with response and reaction time, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I bought those. I use this Taekwondo chest guard. It's called 2020 Armor, and there's like different modes you can use to like work specifically with your speed or work specifically with reaction time or power or whatever. So I definitely take like the technology of things. Like I try to use that to my advantage because like back in 2016, 2015, these things weren't even here for me to use. Like they weren't even invented yet, you know?
That's cool.
So, and then I wound up going to surgery because it was like, I have nothing left to lose. I'm losing almost everything I'm walking into. So,
yeah.
And if like my hips are the things that are limiting me, then might as well just see if it works, you know?
And it worked.
It worked. It did.
But only because you did a lot of PT afterwards, probably.
like the combination of rehab and just like I had impingements, so like my motion is already limited, and then my impingements are making it even more. You know what I mean? So
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was a lot.
Okay, so explain for those that may have not seen Taekwondo in it, explain what, at least for your version of it, explain what it is. So you line up with your competitor in some type of ring. Like, how does it work?
The Olympic and Paralympic side specifically is sparring. So it's a Korean style martial art, and you're fighting with, in the able-bodied side, you're wearing like a censored headgear and chest guard, and you have sensors in your feet. So the goal is to score as many points as possible on the head or the chest guard. You have 3 rounds, you're in an octagon. And you want to be the player that has the most points at the end of the fight.
And you get different points depending on what part of the body you hit.
So in able-bodied, yes, you get like 3 points for the head, whereas it's 2 points for the body. But if the kick is more difficult, it could range from 3 to 5 points. In para specifically, we don't hit the head. So we do wear head guards, but we don't get kicked there. We only go to the body. And like same thing with able-bodied, the more difficult the kick, the more points you receive for landing it. And I believe we do 2-minute rounds or 1:30 rounds, and 3 rounds.
Only 3 rounds.
Yeah.
And how well are you protected? Or like when you get hit, does it hurt?
It hurts. I mean, you're wearing, like, I wear forearm guards and like shin guards, and you have your chest pad and you have your headgear and your mouthpiece. But like I've broken bones before. Like you're wearing gloves, like, but I mean, it definitely, like I come home covered in bruises, but I mean, I think that's also like not getting hurt, but like just like the intensity of the fight is like what makes it kind of more fun. So, yeah.
And have you ever been like injured after a fight?
Yeah, I broke my left hand one year. I broke, actually at the World Championships in 2017, my semifinal fight where I got bronze. I don't know if I broke something or like popped something, but my foot just turned like swollen and blue, and like I was in a boot for like 3 weeks, but there was no specific like diagnosis as to what it was.
It wasn't, and nothing was broken?
Like when the doctors like examined me there, they said my like big toe bone was broken, but then like when I got home, they're like, no, nothing, you're not broken. Like it's just like swollen or something.
But that happened in that match.
Yeah, in that match.
This is just a sport that I'm not that interested in doing myself, but I'm happy to try to come watch you in Tokyo.
Yeah, I mean, it can get like tough at times, but I don't know. It's like it's a different rush of adrenaline when you're in there. So
tell me to describe that feeling when you walk into the octagon and are you shorter than most of your components?
Yeah,
or
I am. There's only 3 weight divisions, and I'm the middle weight division.
Okay.
The weight division below me is too much weight for me to cut. So a lot of people are taller than me, which makes it a lot harder to begin with. But
what's a typical? Are they missing an arm, or
like they're missing like part of their right or left arm?
So it's usually upper body they're missing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So lower leg amputees don't compete in Taekwondo.
So does it make it a little bit easier for you to get in and do a body blow if they're missing an arm, they can't protect that side?
Yeah, it does. But like previously, like leading up until literally the competition I just had last week, I was so like impaired, I guess, in a sense, like I couldn't score if I want. Like my power wasn't there. Like I couldn't turn my hips over enough to get it to score. But like now that like for the last week I was winning by like 7. That doesn't happen like ever.
But do they cap it? Like, do you get to a certain number and then it's like a mercy rule?
Different tournaments have different rules. At the past tournament, it was a 20-point gap. So I've never, like, I've been gapped. I've gotten gapped on, but I've never gapped somebody else, or at least not yet. I mean, I hope to, but not yet. But yeah. So the adrenaline, like when you're in there, it's just like, for me too, it's a lot of overcoming and redeeming like my past performances. So at this past competition, like we were in a timeout and I looked at the clock and I was like, okay, in 1 minute and 30 seconds, I get to celebrate like I've never celebrated before because like I'm winning right now, like I'm going to win this, you know? And then I just got 2 in my head and I wound up losing the fight. But like the adrenaline is just, it's like, it's something I can't even really put into words.
It sounds great. And so they add up the points from the 3 rounds or do you have to win 2 of the rounds or something?
No, like it's like the scoreboard stays on the whole time. So it like continually adds throughout the rounds.
That's cool. So that you're addicted to that feeling, it looks like.
Yeah, definitely. I chase that like that high and like that win. Like I'm really chasing the win.
Let's take a quick break to learn more about the Equipment Loaner Program at Angel City Sports.
Part of our mission at Angel City Sports is to eliminate all barriers to participation in adaptive sports. Providing free adaptive sports equipment is a major component to this objective. Each individual piece of equipment can cost more than $3,000. Can you imagine if running shoes cost that much? So we're building an inventory of adaptive sports equipment to support our clinics, competitions, partner programs, and to loan out to emerging local athletes. Currently, we have racing wheelchairs, throwing chairs, and sport wheelchairs, perfect for tennis and basketball. If you or an athlete you know need a piece of adaptive sports equipment, visit the Equipment Opportunities page at angelcitysports.org. If you are interested in donating equipment or supporting the Equipment Loaner Program, email us at info@angelcitysports.org.
Have you had access to training during COVID?
We like went virtual for part of it, and that was like super different for me, and I'm sure for everybody. Because Taekwondo is very like not socially distanced sport. Like you're literally kicking, sweating, screaming like on each other. I personally like wasn't training at the time because I was rehabbing. Like I literally rehabbed, I would say 80% of quarantine, if not more. So, but like I know the gyms did open back up eventually, like socially distanced and stuff like that. But I wound up buying like mats for my living room, and I bought a kick bag, and like that's kind of where I did my training. And I also just continued like where I do physical therapy. I also have an athletic trainer and a nutritionist, so I continued my training there as well.
So, do you make any of your friends or your parents sort of suit up so you can kind of battle a human?
No, I don't. I just kick the bag because I just feel like it would be a disaster if like I made my mom put on a chest guard and like kicked her. So, I mean, like the people that train me at where I do my strength and conditioning and physical therapy, like they'll put on chest guards and like I'll kick them. But I never really asked my family or my friends to put a chest guard on.
I mean, it would be kind of funny.
It would be funny, yes. And now that you gave me that idea, I might do that later. But I was interviewing another woman who's on the para fencing team, Terry Hayes, and hopefully you'll run into her in Tokyo. And she has a fencing dummy. Okay. Which is equivalent to your bag, but it's like a pillow with little arms made out of towels. And I was like, Terry, you got to send me a picture of this. It's so funny.
But like, I love how everyone's just kind of figured out the training hacks. It's not easy out there. I mean, probably compared to athletes in Africa and other parts of the world, we're doing better, but like, it's still hard, it's not easy.
Corona definitely made people get creative with how they trained.
Totally. Okay, cool. So what's your, how are you feeling about Tokyo?
Now that I'm like rehabbed and now that I went to that previous tournament, I feel great. I feel super confident. My goal isn't necessarily like, yes, it is the gold as any other athlete, but my goal primarily is to medal. Mm-hmm. So like, I feel like I can do that now. Like, I feel like it's something I can really obtain and I can do. So I'm definitely optimistic going into Tokyo, and being that I'm leaving in like a week or two to start my training camp. It's getting real. It's like, and I'm sure with your son, like, we talk about this event for so long. Yeah. And now even longer because of COVID, and now it's here. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's here. Like, it's like, it's hard to put into words because it's like, you look forward to it, you think about it, you dream about it, and like, it's literally like 2 months away. So
it's so cool. All right. So when you made the team, did you just break down and cry? Like, what'd you do?
No, we knew back in October of 2019. And they okay, so at that tournament, like, if this one woman went further, if she went all the way to the finals, then I would have been like knocked out of like the world ranking qualification. Mm-hmm. I would have had another shot at the qualification where you just go to qualify. But as far as like going through the ranking,
the top 4 get to go.
Yeah, I wouldn't have made it. But she wound up losing her second fight, and I watched that fight. And the second she lost, I literally, like, I have a video of myself. Like, I literally just started crying, like, screaming. Like, I was so ecstatic and, like, so overwhelmed with emotion. I called probably everybody in my phone and was like, I made it, like, I'm going. And then, but we kind of kept it, like, I didn't post anything about it because we didn't want to post until the official announcement came out. And that was January of 2020.
Okay. So yeah, that sucks. You had to keep a secret that long.
Yeah. But like, I celebrated with who I could, and like, I enjoyed the moment. So it wasn't terrible, but.
I love that emotion of, starting to achieve your dreams and goals. Yeah, speaking of dreams and goals, what would you say are some of your long-term dreams and goals, either in sport or beyond sport?
Sport-wise, I definitely want to go to 2024, and I definitely want to go to 2028. I plan to retire in 2028. I think 2028 is perfect because it's here in America, so like all my family and friends could come, and like, I don't know, it just like to represent your home country, like on home ground, like I think would be like the ultimate dream in sport. So that's where I want to go there. And then as far as like outside of sport, I do want to open my own, like I want to run a physical therapy practice. So I want to be a CEO of a physical therapy practice, and run it like managerially and then like staff it with PTs. My degree was healthcare administration. So I want to go back for my master's and do that eventually, but I'm nowhere near like rushing that. So
I love that. That's a great, a great plan.
Thank you.
You have to get your MBA.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we're into the last segment of the show, which is our soul searching show. And I always kick it off with a kind of a fun question, which is, tell me an interesting, fun / silly fact about you that I don't know.
An interesting fact about me. I feel like I'm outside of like what we've talked about, I'm not that interesting.
You say you're not very interesting?
Like I'm like that. This is all I do. It's like
It could be like a quirky thing you like, or you do, or or just something in your childhood that's like so random no one would ever expect it.
Oh my
Like
goodness.
one of our guests was in the circus when she was younger, and you would never expect it. It's just so funny.
Oh my god, I literally have no idea. Okay, maybe like, okay, so prior to competing, I like never left like New York State, basically. Like I never left the East Coast. So I've now been to like 18 different countries, but like prior to, and probably if I didn't compete, I would have like literally stayed in New York State. So
You're saying never in your life did you ever leave the East Coast?
yeah. Up until competing. Like starting to compete.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Okay, that's good. And now you're like a world traveler.
yeah.
Cool. So what has your disability taught you?
It has taught me the value of hard work. It taught me that life isn't always going to go the way you want it to, but that doesn't mean that that's a bad thing. And it taught me that I can overcome like more than I think I can. So.
Yeah. So it's given you, I don't know, is that resilience? Is it a little confidence? It's sort of a mix of things.
I mean, where I'm at right now, like with the disability, like, and confidence-wise, like I'm literally going to be the only one competing with CP on the Paralympic stage. So I have confidence in that, and like that has given me a newfound sense of confidence that I didn't really have before. And I could actually be like, I used to be so embarrassed by my disability, but like now I'm proud.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Thank you.
I mean, that's my hope for everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Own it. Be proud.
Yeah, I think it's like just an easier way to live by owning it and like working on it or just accepting it. Like me personally, I never really accepted it. I always thought like, oh, I could be better. I could be stronger. Like I could get more flexible. And I think that's why I've gotten so far. But like, you don't always have to have that mindset. Like as long as you're like happy with who you are and like how you are, then like it's all good.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I hope your parents see this too, that they like, because it's a blessing as a parent to know that your child is owning who they are. It doesn't mean that it is not necessarily related to disability, but just in general.
Like just in general. But
say it again.
Oh no, go ahead. I was just gonna say like I think they see it, so I'm glad.
Yeah, that's great. What have you learned from any mistakes or failures?
Like I've learned that perseverance could take you a really long way. Like giving up is like it's always an option, but it's the worst option, I feel like. And I feel like there have been many times, even like not recently, but prior to COVID, that I literally was just like, I'm done with this. I can't do this. Like, but like persevering and like overcoming just that mindset, like has gotten me so far. So, yeah.
Got it. What stresses you out and how do you deal with it?
Like sport wise?
Anything.
Well, a lot of things stress me out. But like,
well, let's get the list. What's the list?
Okay, so I mean, competing comes with like its own like stress, but like it's also a good stress because you can take that energy and like turn it into positive energy. But yeah, Taekwondo, like there are times where it stresses me out completely. I mean, like even just like a lot of people like okay, I have to like word what I want to say, but so a lot of people go to college, get a job, and like start the 9 to 5 and do the family life thing. And like right now, like my life looks totally different than that. Like I'm not heading right into a career. I more than likely won't be for the next 4 to 8 years. Not that I'm not going to work, but like I'm not going to like start my career really. And a lot of people like judge me for that, or to like have like preconceived notions of that. And it's like that kind of stresses me out. It's like it's not your typical route, the way people normally go, but it's also like this is a once in a lifetime thing. And it's something that like I'm a firm believer, like after COVID, like working a 9 to 5 during that time period, like I really believe that like humans are not meant to sit in an office from 9 to 5 and like vacation for 2 weeks and like not like act on their dreams or like do other things, because like that makes life so boring. Like Taekwondo and like what I'm doing makes life so exciting, and I'd rather pick that over like the security of money, so
I think that's a great philosophy. And I think you just have to be kind to yourself and know that some people won't love your choices and your journey. But as long as along the way you can tell the story of what you learned and what you gained and the skills acquired along the way, I will tell you, most employers love hiring athletes. So
it's good to know.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk to recruiters, they often say, I look for athletes. I look for, collegiate athletes, or at least kind of went through high school, because it just gives you, sport just gives you so much in terms of skills that are applicable to the work environment. So it's different. We can have you tell me when you're out trying to get a corporate job, and I'll help you, spin your resume for that.
I appreciate that.
Do you have a life philosophy or a quote that sort of keeps you centered, or something you tell yourself when you're struggling or up against it?
I guess something I always kind of go back to is like, I believe there's no other choice but to go through whatever's in front of you. Because your options are to sit and cry about it or do something about it. You could cry and do something about it, but you're doing something about it. So that's like I just feel like no matter the circumstance, like you just have to go through it. Like you just have to get to the other side, and like you'll be glad you did once you get there.
Yeah.
So nothing like specific, but that's just kind of my mindset, is like you have to keep going.
And that I hear that, because it's come out a few times in the interview already, which is kind of cool. There's like a push forward aspect to you in how you see things, which is great, because that avoids the couch wallowing, right? If you're on the couch, you're not moving.
Right.
I love it. Okay. What do you think your purpose is?
That's tough. I think like this is part of my purpose, is to like showcase what CP athletes can do on a Paralympic stage, or just in life, what people with CP can do, and like what they can overcome.
And by the way, CP, like disability, is very misunderstood. So I think that's a really cool, purpose that you can layer in there, which is like, you're competing at an elite level, competing against amputees, hopefully kicking their butts.
Yeah, thank you. I don't think that's like my sole purpose. I don't know. Like I've never really thought, like I remember sitting in class one time and they asked us that question, and I was just like, Taekwondo is my purpose. Like this is my purpose. But I don't.
You don't feel that way. I mean, it's part of it, but it's not the sole purpose.
Yeah, I don't think it's like the sole purpose, but it's definitely part of it. So.
All right, so that's your homework. You got to like work on that one.
Okay.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thank you.
We are in the home stretch. I'm going to give you the microphone. to share whatever pops to mind. If you forgot to acknowledge some important person along the way, and also let our listeners know how to, follow your journey. If there's a website or a, social tag you want to throw out there,
Sure.
but the floor is yours.
Okay. So, I mean, as far as like thanking people, like obviously I'm thankful to my parents for like just the attitude they instilled in me. I'm thankful to everyone at the Schwartz Institute, Massapequa Physical Therapy. Like I said earlier in the interview, like finding that right facility for you, like really can take you far in your rehab or just where you want to be physically in life. So
yeah.
I'm grateful to them. Like all my coaches that I've worked with, either past or present, I'm definitely grateful for. And yeah.
Cool. Where can people follow your journey?
So my main like social account that I use is Instagram, and it's just my name, Brianna Salinaro. I do have a Facebook page. I do have a TikTok. I don't really use it too much, but like I plan to use it coming up to Tokyo. So, but everything is my name. So, yeah, if that's where you can
Very
find
easy. I like it. So, listen, Brianna, thank you so much for your time today. I learned a little bit about CP. I learned a lot about para Taekwondo, and was thrilled to learn about your journey in sport, and wishing you all the best in Tokyo. And I should be there. I haven't booked my ticket yet, but I will. I don't know how I'm going to get into any venue there, but I will certainly try to get into your venue to see you fight if I can. But best of luck in Tokyo.
Thank you.
We're rooting for you.
Thank you. And same to your son. Good luck to your son. I do hope we cross paths when we get there. So thank you for having me so much.
Well, I really loved interviewing Brianna. It's inspiring to me to see the next generation of Paralympians not just striving for athletic achievement, but also serving as role models. And in our next episode, we interview sitting volleyball player Nikki Nieves and her quest to repeat her gold medal performance in Tokyo.